North Denver in 1978. That afternoon Finney was playing baseball. Several times Finney always had a strike and was thrown by the three. Bruce as the executor managed to hit the ball so that it was thrown far away. The ball throw at the same time ended the match on that day, which was won by Bruce's team. The next day Bruce cycled around the complex flirting with the women. After some distance he was cycling, Bruce was confronted by a suspicious van approaching him. At that time it was reported that many teenagers had mysteriously disappeared. At home Finney only lives with his sister Gwen and his father Finney. Already cloudy. Finney's father Rocky is a father figure who is strict with both of them. While on the way to school as usual there were fights between school thugs who dueled in the field, Robin and Moose. At school Finney is a good student, but not infrequently there are other students who are always annoying Finney at school. When Finney will be disturbed unexpectedly, his best friend Robin and one of the thugs at the school who had a fight with Moose. It was the three of them who would have interfered Finney, but immediately they direct go. After knowing that Finney best friends with Robin also threatening they never bother Finney again. Character from Finney himself is a teenager who quiet and kind. Robin then advised Finney at someday Finney have to be brave to fight. You don't always have to give in. Be hard on the world and the world will submit to you. On the other hand, Gwen was called to the teacher's room where it turned out that there were two detectives who wanted to ask Gwen a few things. The detective asked about Bruce, who was recently declared missing suddenly. Gwen is a child who has the advantage of being able to see the missing person through a dream. I had a dream about Bruce being kidnapped. Gwen said the kidnapper brought a black balloon and the kidnapper used a black van. Even though it sounded strange, but the detective was looking for information from Gwen's dream because the police themselves had difficulty finding traces of the disappearance Bruce. Not without reason, because Gwen's dreams have some similarities with the evidence found by the police, namely black balloons. But over time the detective seemed to have interrogated him, forcing Gwen to answer each of his questions. The dream that Gwen saw only at first glance didn't show in detail. Basically it was just a dream, it wasn't necessarily true. That it made Gwen finally angry. That afternoon, Robin, who was walking alone, saw a black van parked in front of him. Again, the kidnapping happened again, and now Robin is the next victim. The city of Denver was shocked again. Many teenagers were declared missing. Finney asked Gwen to find out what happened when Robin disappeared through his dream, but Robin's disappearance was not as usual. Gwen had never dreamed about Robin before. Usually every time there was a missing teenager, Gwen always had dreams about the kidnapping and always dreamed of the incident, those who were kidnapped. But Gwen promised to try again. Before going to bed, Gwen performed a ritual before praying for clues through her dreams so she could give these clues to the police, hoping that the people who were could be found again. The next day after they came home from school at the crossroads, Finney and Gwen would be separated because Gwen was going to stay at Susie's house. But after walking some distance Finney saw a black van parked. Finney himself didn't know that it was the kidnapper's car. Then a man appeared who pretended to drop his luggage. The man admits that he is a street magician, and when Finney is about to try to help him and suddenly Finney is pushed and forced into the car, Finney was taken and locked up in a cellar. After the grabber left, Finney looked around the room checking the situation and looking for a way maybe he could escape there. Finney saw there was a telephone, but the phone was disconnected. For a moment Finney lay on the bed thinking about his fate now. On the other hand, Gwen also found out that Finney was declared missing. Gwen became very shocked. unexpectedly that her own brother was the victim of the kidnapping. It's been a few days that Gwen has never again gotten a clue from her dream. Suddenly the sound of her phone rings, which even though it's an unconnected phone, Finney tries to pick it up. Then the kidnapper comes back and says his phone hasn't been working for a long time, he's just delivering food for Finney, and soon he was gone again. Finney tried to scream as loud as he could, but it seemed like it was no use since the room was soundproofed. Soon the phone rang again, not a dream, but it was real. After being picked up several times, finally a woman who called his name Finney was scared because there was no way there could be a dead voice on the phone. But out of curiosity, when the phone rang, Finney picked it up again, and what Finney was now talking to was a male voice, and it was discovered that it was Bruce. Bruce told Finney that there was a fragile ceramic there. Finney could dig a hole to be used as a trap, then the call immediately cut off. Finney began to realize that Bruce was dead. After a few days, Gwen finally had another dream where she saw Bruce's kidnapping and saw Finney trying to get out of a house. Finney tried to follow what Bruce ordered. After successfully digging the hole, then he covered it with a carpet. The next morning Graber came back to make breakfast for Finney. It is not known what his purpose was for kidnapping Finney and keeping him there, but when he came back out he saw the door as if it was not locked. Finney then tried to open it, and it was true that the door was unlocked. And when he was about to open the door, the phone rang again. He asked Finney not to come out of the room because it was just a trap. But now contacting Finney is a different person, not the kid who called him yesterday. He doesn't know who Bruce is, even he doesn't know himself, who he remembers only as a newspaper seller who likes to walk around the complex area. Finney knew him. If he was a newspaper seller, it means he is indeed Billy. But at that time he didn't really care about his name. The most important thing was that Finney didn't leave the room. If Finney tried to come out, Finney will be punished and whipped to death, because that's what Billy experienced when he was punished by Graber, deliberately waiting for mistakes made by Finney, so he has a reason to be able to punish Finney. Actually, this Graber behavior is a bit strange, right? He deliberately waits for the victim to make a mistake first so he can punish and then kill him. And it is known that those who experienced this over the phone were dead people who had become grabber victims. Hearing this, Finney made no intention of getting out of there. The next day Billy contacted Finney again. Then the motorbike moving by itself directed it to a window because it was a safe way for Finney to get out. While Gwen was asleep in class, she was given another dream about Billy the newsboy. In Gwen's dream, she saw a dry tree in front of the kidnapper's house. Finney remembers how Billy's spirit led him to find a cable that Billy had hidden in the room before, with great difficulty. But it seemed in vain because the window was covered by thick glass. Gwen then told about his dream to his father, even though his father didn't actually believe in Gwen's dreams. But that night he and Gwen tried to go around the complex to feel where Gwen was. The house was still in their complex area because Gwen felt familiar with the place she saw in her dream. While the police and the two detectives started to go through every house in the complex area until they arrived at one of Max's residences. Max actually took two. The detective entered, and in the house it turned out that Max was also tracing the news about the missing children with his theories. Max tried to explain to the detectives, but the detectives didn't care about the theories explained by Max. The detective asked how long he had lived in the current house. Max himself only lives temporarily here, and Y's house, what he now lives in, is his brother Max's house. Soon the detective was gone, and it turns out that under the house there is a room where Finney was held captive. Finney was shown a number of toys from one of the victims, slowly starting to unfold. During this time, many teenagers who had become victims of one of the wandering spirits told Finney to get out of the house. He had to open all the doors above, and the door was locked with a padlock using a code. Finney then tried to work up the courage to go upstairs, and seeing Graber, who was fast asleep, slowly and carefully he began to unlock the lock. Finally, Finney managed to unlock the padlock and immediately left there, but unfortunately Finney didn't have time to run. The Graber immediately caught him back. The phone rang again, but now the one calling Mrs. Pansapy from one of the delinquents in the complex. At the same time, Gwen had a dream where Pansapy visited a house. From the wandering spirits of the victims, Finney was helped until he found a way out that could penetrate into a freezer that was no longer working, but again the freezer cabinet is difficult to penetrate. Had wanted to give up in every way that has been done but ended in failure. Soon the phone rang again, as if Finney had lost hope to pick it up, but now the one calling him was his own best friend, Robin. When Finney was no longer excited here, Robin reassured Finney again and reminded Finney what Robin had said when he was on the toilet, that someday Finney had to have the courage to fight. Someday it was today where Finney had to have the courage to defend himself. Robin continues to provide moral support to Finney. He must be sure of himself if he can get through all of this. Finney must stay alive so that the victims' deaths are not in vain and can be stopped before there are other victims. Robin teaches Finney how to fight and how to punch by crushing his opponent. And lastly, Robin told Finney to fill the telephone receiver with sand so that it could add to the load after everything was ready. Now it all depended on Finney, and that was this last conversation with Robin. Gwen is still looking for the house in her dream. Then suddenly he was connected. There were already people standing in the middle of the road. They were people who had become victims. Graber, the sighting of the spirits, gave a sign to Gwen, and finally Gwen found the house in his dream. That Gwen was sure it was his house. He rushed back to call detectives. In that house, Max himself didn't know that his brother was a kidnapper. He was suspicious of one of the rooms that was always locked, and how surprised Max was to find Finney in the basement. And suddenly the Graber appeared and entered, and then stabbed Max with an axe to death. On the other hand, Gwen and the police came and raided the house. Graber was forced to kill his own brother for fear that Max would reveal his secret. Here Graber will have fun. He calls Samson his beloved dog. But everything was planned by Finney. When Finney was about to be attacked, Finney fought back. Graber fell into the trap Finney had prepared. Finney used the phone, then attacked mercilessly. Finney managed to strangle Graber until finally he was dying. Before his death, the phone rang again. Then Finney gave his phone to the Graber, and that was the voice of the spirits of the victims who had been grabbed. While on the other side of the house, the police only found an underground room containing a collection of the victims, and it turned out that Finney himself was being held in a different house, the house that was right in front of the house. Not long after, he finally came to see Finney, who managed to survive here. His father apologized to his two children, who had always been tough. His father was very grateful to be back with his father. He also apologized to Gwen for ignoring his dream. It turned out that it was not just a dream, but a gift that it's in Gwen. The nightmare that has been haunting the city of Denver is now over, and at that house the police also found 5 bodies that had become grabber victims after the incident. That happened to Finney, At school they are now respected and feared because in the hands of the Finney Graber finally died, and here finally the film was finished. Okay, see you in the next video.